I made it back down south from Birch Bay, and I got to the campground early, so I decided to go for a walk on this dike. I've seen this many times as a delivery driver, driven past it, and always kind of wondered what was here. And so I decided to walk the entire length of the dike, which is only about 2.5 miles each way, maybe a little bit less. So this is in Skagit Valley, and it's extremely windy here. It's always a little bit breezy here, but on this particular day, a rainstorm was blowing in, and so there was quite a bit of wind, and it wasn't exactly warm, but I just put on a sweatshirt and kept going. These dikes were built in the late 19th and early 20th century to reclaim farmland from the Skagit River Valley. So off to the right there is Padilla Bay, and that's what most of the valley used to look like. But they decided to reclaim it and build dikes and irrigation canals like you see in front of me here. Pretty much this entire valley is flat and low, and it's at sea level, so it tends to flood if there's any breach in the dikes, which there occasionally are. This area still is some of the best farmland in the area, and it also serves as a gateway to the San Juan Islands, which we were just looking at there. While these fields may not be as big as some of the areas out in eastern Washington or the Midwest, you still just don't see stuff like this in western Washington in almost any other area. There just isn't much flat land. It's all hills and mountains. Along the trail, you see reminders from the early 20th century of just how important this area is to farming and fishing. Lots of old equipment, stuff like that. Also, this area is home to tons of wildlife, mostly birds that are passing through and using it as a good place to stop for a snack. During the spring and fall, you see a lot of migrating birds. For example, these snow geese that are just passing through in formation. And also, birds of prey like to make this their home, mostly preying on the migrating birds, but also some of the smaller fish and wildlife in the area. Campsite open again. I returned to the campsite and parked for the night. So this is down at Bayview State Park. They have a nice little beach area where you can see the view. Again, this bay is extremely shallow, and during low tides, this is all just mud. But right now it's high tide, so it looks nice. The campsite itself is nice and clean. It's a lot quieter, and there are fewer other travelers around than there are at some of the other campsites I've been to. As you can see, there's just not even a campsite nearby. That's just a parking spot for some reason. And there's a couple campsites down there, but it's not too bad. Showers are always a little bit strange at campsites. This particular one is coin operated. Some of the other campsites I've been to have coin operated showers as well, but the coin-operated thing wasn't working, so they were just free. Without refrigeration, I decided to try this chili with some dried vegetables and a little bit of this Vermont cheddar cheese powder that I found. It all rehydrates and cooks up and actually turns out pretty well. It looks a little weird when it's dry, But once you add water, it starts looking a little bit better. With a rainstorm on its way, it was extremely windy that evening, and it was loud. You can hear it a little bit on the camera, but in person it was quite loud, and those big trees were swaying back and forth quite a lot, dropping pine cones and other things on me. It was a good chance to air out my car, though. I opened up all the doors and windows and let some good clean air in. The evening was finished off by a nice walk down to the beach and a look out towards the oil refinery off in the distance. I have the day off today, so I'm going to go down and check out Anacortes since I'm fairly close by. We'll see what that's all about. Anacortes is a jumping off spot for the San Juan Islands and, of course, people headed up north to Alaska and that sort of thing. So there's lots of boats around, both fishing and recreational boats, just every kind of boat you can imagine. The town area looked deserted, mostly because of COVID. But as I got close to the water, there was just more fishing stuff and these nice little houses. It's a good area for people that like boats a lot, and you see a lot of retired people here. Anacortes does have this really nice park looking out towards the San Juans, just a little bit past the San Juan Island ferry. I stopped here for lunch and then decided to head further into the park and see what it was about. This former homestead turned into a park has fantastic views of Rosario Strait and lots of hiking trails through a big forested area. It's a beautiful place to stop and look around. With all the rain outside, I decided to just take a drive around Fidalgo Island, which in theory is part of the San Juans, but I don't think many other San Juan islands have this kind of housing developments on them. So I decided to get out of the housing developments and head further inland into less populated areas of the island. It was beautiful, but nothing too unusual for the Pacific Northwest, not so much like the San Juan Islands I expected. I decided to go down to LaConner instead and see what was going on there. It's looking good as usual on the Swinomish Channel with some nice, beautiful boats. Downtown area has been hit very hard with the coronavirus. No Tulip Festival in the Skagit Valley means that this area looks a little bit more deserted than usual. Fortunately, there are still at least some cars around. With a final stop on the Swinomish Channel, I decided it was time to head back up to the campground. It's a rainy day here at the campsite, and I have things that I need to get done. Unfortunately, since I still don't have my van back yet, I'm just in the back of my car, and as you can see, not a lot of headroom. I'm pretty much having to lay down to make this video, but that's okay. I have a lot of work that I need to get done, both editing videos, and I also need to start working really hard getting my sales pitch ready for a new position I'm taking as a solar panel sales person. Fortunately, this position is something I can do remotely, so hopefully I can quit my delivery job here fairly soon, and I can start selling solar panels instead and get out of this area, hopefully out of this car. Yesterday was an extremely long day making deliveries, and I don't usually have this particular day of the week off, but I spent about 12 hours on the road making deliveries, and then with an hour commuting each direction, that was 14 hours of just driving. And so by the time I got done, I was just really exhausted, and I apparently fell asleep before setting any of my 5 alarm clocks, and so I couldn't wake up in time. That's one of the problems with this job, is that it's long hours, and I have to wake up at about 4:15, 4:30 in the morning to get there. It's kind of doable, and I can do it for a few more weeks, I guess, but it's getting a bit much. It didn't used to be this early, but the hours have always been just crazy like this. So hopefully I can get this sales job going and improve my pay, and things will just be better in general.